Welcome to Stu and Nunn, an online show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and self-service. We are here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room via our Facebook page and on Twitter. And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. Changing up some of the intro music and may have went X-rated there, not realizing.
Like, what are you doing?
You're like, your mom listens to this show. Did I just hear what I thought I heard?
Sorry,
yeah.
I know no one can hear me because my.
No, I got you. My
microphone was too far away from my face.
I had a.
Your mom does watch and listen to this show, so you might want to check yourself before you wreck yourself at next, Sunday dinner.
Yeah, I as it was playing, I was like, and as soon as I was like, I got to start doing some stuff. I'm having one of those moments.
Yeah. Having one of those moments. But hey, we got a great show lined up. But first, we want to thank everybody that supports this show, everyone that tunes in, everyone that subscribes via the Spotify, via the Apple iPod podcast, and whatever, Twitch, Twerk, whatever else that we're on, the use of tubes. We like it.
As it was playing,
also a big shout out to our sponsors, Veteran Outdoors, Kermode Outdoors, as well as, like boohammer.com. And then, of course, none better than Enlisted 9 Fight Company, with the nice t-shirt that you got going on, and gear for grunts, man. Dude, like, the list is getting long. And as always, save 15% on your elite supplements with Alpha Elite Performance. Use the code ELITE15.
There we go. That's right.
And get your Green Beret on.
Get your Green Beret on.
Speaking of Green Berets, we got one on the show tonight. Dustin Jones joining us from GB Outdoors, also known as Green Beret Outdoors. So we're gonna holler at him because we haven't said the word outdoors enough in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of outdoors going on, but that's all right.
A lot of outdoors.
Yeah. So hey, Dusty, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the chance here.
Yeah, absolutely. And
well, don't screw it up. All right, there's serious business. Like, get your serious face on and get ready.
That's it. The good to see you and good having you on here on our 234th episode or something like that.
Damn, son.
Yeah,
like basically famous.
Yeah, basically.
No one.
January
with our ones of followers.
Yes. We were talking about. I talked about Dusty today. I was on Dave Bellavia's show on WBEN, and he hit up, who do you got on tonight? And I was telling him about it. So, hopefully we're running some new people there from the Western New York area. And Dusty. So I'm up here in we call our northern studio in Western New York. Toby's in the southern studio in the great state of Tejas, the Republic of Tejas in Georgetown.
Preach it.
And where are you coming to us from?
I'm up there in great old beautiful green North Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint.
Good country right there. It's God's country.
So beautiful up there. That's one of my favorite places. I grew up in BC, and so when we'd come through the States or into the States, we'd usually travel through there, and we'd hit the Panhandle a lot. Coming out of Alberta, cutting across, we'd get through there, and I love Coeur d'Alene. It's a gorgeous area, decent hills, some pretty decent wildlife up there. You got the only land-based ivory in North America, that's pretty prevalent up there. That's pretty nice. And and fishing wise, it's okay. It doesn't suck.
No, it's not horrible at all.
Yeah. So, are you originally from there?
No, I'm technically I'm a military brat. I was born in Fayetteville. My
Oh,
father was military.
congratulations.
So somehow I got out of there. They were smart enough to bring me back west, and so basically grew up between Idaho, Montana, and Utah. Uh, Military, and then somehow found myself back this direction. So
Well, you chose wisely. You
Yes.
chose wisely. Yeah.
We are connected. I was born in Fayetteville myself, also a military brat, also of a Green Beret. So, yeah, Cape Fear Hospital.
Go.
But, yeah.
Is that like a housing development or?
Yeah, not quite. Yeah. No, I probably have you by a couple years.
Was that the hospital? Was it Cape Fear Medical Center?
Cape Fear Valley Hospital, I think it was the name of it. I don't know.
Sounds right.
Our second producer, my mom, will probably pipe in like, "You was born in this room." But anyways, yeah. Well, good. Hey, well, that's awesome, man. So Idaho is great country. That whole part of the country is there, and I imagine that part of the country feels a little disconnected right now, and very curious, like most of the country does, about what's going on. I would say.
Yeah, it's an everyday thing out here.
Yeah. It's got to watch yourself. Some people may come after you just by living out there, right? There's all those wrong stereotypes pushed by whatever. But anyways, yeah. So let's talk about it. If you wouldn't mind, just kind of give our viewers and us a little bit about your military background, and then we want to get into what brought you to, you are an entrepreneur, kind of what brought you to GB Outdoors, and what was the driver that said, hey, this is a path I want to go down, and what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So 9/11 sticks out in a lot of our minds. I was a junior in high school and watched the towers fall. Very surreal experience, and probably like a lot of generations prior, that was a very real call to war, call to action kind of moment in my life. Had family members in the military. My father served. My granddad was a Vietnam helicopter pilot. My uncle was a MP turned recruiter, and so I started asking, "Hey, what about a career in the military?" And it turns out they have this thing called the 18 X-ray program. So snot nosed and wet behind the ears, I was like, "I'm going to go try that." So at 18, went through the Q course. 2 years later, 20 years old, here I am, still wet behind the ears, but I'm wearing a Green Beret. Uh, Off to 7th group, quickly there to Afghanistan. And the show just never stopped for the next 10 years. Iraq, Afghanistan, all over South America. A lot of training. Met a lot of really interesting people over the years. Played in a lot of real fun arenas, if you will, and worked with a lot of real top-notch war fighters. Just because some of the missions that I got to be a part of. So,
well, just to clarify for our listeners, fun is an F word too. So, just to make sure we're all tracking on that. But
your mom is listening to the show.
It's fun, yeah. But yeah, interesting. Okay, well, it's interesting. We've had a number of guests recently. I was just thinking when you were going through it, Toby, I was kind of thinking, it's like, we've had a few recently that 9/11 was an inspiration. It makes me feel old because obviously, remember 9/11 happened, was already, was serving well at that time. And it's like, it seems to be the catalyst for many folks that have, selfless servants that have raised their right hand, knowing what they're getting into and step forward. And I think that's awesome.
Go
ahead.
That's such that's our observation, right? And a lot of people don't get that. When you and I came in, there wasn't you were in when Moses was like getting ready to, take people back to the promised land. But hey,
I appreciate your any soldier letter you wrote me in Desert Storm, so you can just calm down.
Yeah, don't die. And then I had like a stick man with like blood spurting out. Like
kill Saddam, kill Saddam Hussein,
kill Saddam. No, when we joined, we had different aspirations. We had a different understanding. We had a different lens at which we looked at the potential of our service. And anyone that was affected by 9/11, like, they had a different lens. And I remember thinking to myself, like, when the new kids would show up and you're getting them spooled up. Like, they knew when they raised their hand and signed their name, they were going to war. The 18 X-ray program, it was an interesting program. I remember our guys, trying to, get ready and, earn the opportunity to go to SFAS. And, there was a rank and there was a time in service requirement, non-waiverable, and the SF recruiters would come by, and then all of a sudden, like, these floodgates open. They're like, oh, we're taking guys off the street. But it had such a huge attrition rate. But like, some quality guys came out of there. One of my favorite human beings on earth, a little guy named Justin Lakin, he was an X-ray, him and Tim Kennedy went in on the Battle Buddy program. So there's some really neat X-rays. But what a interesting attrition rate. Usually you got like this more mature guy that had this worldly experience and different, MOS or, different duty assignments within his career going into that field. Now you got, like you said, these wet behind the ear guys, and they're not just like going to a team. Like, that team's operational. Like, they're like, oh, you're good, check this block, all right, SRP, check. All right, here are your air items.
Welcome to the show. Get to work.
Hit the ramp. But you were, I unfortunately, never got blessed with that career opportunity. But man, like, if I did, 7th is where I would have wanted to be. Like, South America, Central South America, really cool, like, area of operations. There's like neat things like the opportunity to do Lancero, going and working. I remember, like, I'm about to say something probably horribly racist. What was the School of the Americas? All right, I was there's like a nickname that we had for it. Anytime you'd be at Benning for a school, you'd have to share like a chow hall with like the foreign students, and there was like this nickname, and I'm pretty sure we're not allowed to say that anymore. But 7th.
We'll just get some hate mail, but I mean, we can.
Yeah, we're probably gonna get some anyway. But no, like, what a cool theater of operations, because it's, as I was a guy at your age coming in, the real war was the war on drugs, and the TV shows that you would watch back then were like the Vietnam era, like Tour of Duty, this jungle thing. And like, that was South America, even though it was Vietnam. I mean, like, in your mind, like, fighting the banana leaves and doing all that stuff, like, that was like 7th Group. That was the area of operations. And I mean, I know you got to go to the big show, but man, the little show, that's a sketchy little spot, man.
Oh yeah, the little show's definitely got its hot spots too. I mean, the drug war, the narco terrorism, there's shootings that happen all the time, even if you go to nice places in, Bogota or Peru or any of these other places. I mean, it's still a sketchy place. I mean, it's not like you're, going down the street to the local, Circle K or whatever to go grab something. I mean, you got to have your head screwed on while you're down there still.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's from Central South. I mean, pretty much once you cross the border all the way down, there's a serious threat there. I mean, we were talking about earlier, I lived 4 years in Panama as a dependent, right, back in the 70s, and it's totally different than it was just, in the start of the 80s. I had a chance to go back to Brazil in my civilians job a number of years ago, and I was like, yeah, Brazil, and the guys, my team down there was like, no, we're taking you everywhere. You're gonna have body armor. I'm like, well, I'm not going back to Afghanistan. They were like, no, this is no joke. You will not leave the hotel unless we take you around. I'm like, and that threat, as you know, Dusty, I mean, that threat is there all the time, even though it doesn't make the news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's probably the biggest thing. In fact, when were you in Afghanistan?
Oh man, 06. Yeah, 06, and then back again.
Okay.
08.
Yeah, I was there 06 to 07, and as you know, then we weren't on the news then either, and there was a lot happening over there in 06, and it was there was nothing. It was all the surge. It was everything going in Iraq, and I even came back on mid-tour leave, and people said, I didn't know we were even still there, and I was like, oh my goodness. But yeah, where were you at over there? What area? What?
We ended up RC East. You remember that little
Yeah,
slice of heaven up on the Paki border?
yeah, that's where I was. I was Pictia province. I was Ghazni, OE, Sharana,
Yep.
that whole area. That was my
Yeah, we
sector.
were up Asadabad, Naray,
Okay,
like
yeah, just north. Yeah,
fun times. We
yeah,
were we were the furthest, at least in '06, we were the furthest northeast deployed dudes on the ground. Our first several months there was just kind of trying to build a FARP so that we could actually reach certain things because we just didn't have reach.
yeah,
So
yeah. A lot of those skills. Obviously the SF mission, for those that don't know, right? It's always been a FID mission. We call FID, working with foreign indigenous forces and doing that kind of stuff. But after 9/11, a lot of that turned into more of a kinetic operation. But even that, you're not always trained on some of the skills you were going to need. You needed over there that kind of just came on the fly and just went off gut instinct. I'm sure, right?
yeah, you figured it out as you went. I mean, you had a mission to do. So hey,
Yeah.
guess what? Now you're in charge of what? And you're like, I don't know anything about it. They're like, get a book, call someone, figure
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah, do help build a community center and do public outreach, and by the way, be ready to pull the trigger at any second when you need to. Yeah, but all right, awesome. Well, so how does that transition from there to some of the things you've done? You worked for a number of consulting different civilian agencies, and obviously now leading the GB Outdoors and standing this up. How have you transitioned into that?
Yeah, well, so I mean, obviously, everyone eventually hits their point where they're like, is there anything else I want to do with my career? Realized I didn't want to be one of those guys that got long in the tooth. I loved my career. I would have stuck around longer, but I was getting tired. I was getting tore up. 10 years on a team and constant deployments just was starting to take its toll. And I was like, it's time for me to go find something else. Uh, Business was always interesting. Wanted to figure out more about it. Like, what about this thing? It's like the only thing that I've found since leaving the military that even closely translates to what I did in the military. And every day is just a new problem to solve. Like, you don't get wrapped around the axles about it. You just figure it out, find a solution, call somebody, and you figure it out. And what you find sometimes doesn't always, it's not always gone to plan, but you just figure it out. But yeah, late 2015 was like, I'm out. Chuck deuces. I'm going to go figure this out. Everyone starts out with this grandiose plan, and the economy and the market kind of humbled me. Did about, I call it the confusion years. I think every vet gets out and they're kind of like, what do I do now? Because it's such a tight culture. And then you get out and you run into the quote unquote civilian world, and it's different. We don't talk the same. We don't walk the same, like completely different environment. So you got to adapt, and you have to adapt fast. And now you got to do it somewhat by yourself because your team's not there anymore. Yeah, just kind of found myself bouncing around. Stayed in Florida because 7th Group had eventually moved to Florida. Stayed in Florida. Got in with one of my buddies. He had a firearms company, and we kind of restarted that whole thing. He calls me and he's like, hey man, I know you're out of work. I need help and I need it now. And I was like, cool, I got nothing better going on. So got in kind of at the startup, like that that heart and soul of a business startup, and kind of liked it. Every day was new. And I was like, okay, well now what? So obviously you got to have seed money. So I was like, all right, I got to go make more money. So, put the contractor hat on again for a little while, played that, and I'm sure 5 years from now, I'll look back and go, oh, that was a really good adventure. Startups they don't always work out as intended. So you just keep throwing darts at the wall and, just keep driving forward and continue to surround yourself with people that are on the same mission as you. And you just figure it out, and then you take the opportunities as they're presented. And so COVID, is a trying time. We've all dealt with this throughout 2020, and now it's kind of still creeping out of the woodwork into 2021. But I've been go, 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 go. And COVID kind of gave me a chance to take a break. And I was like, what do I really want to do? Like, what always feeds my soul? And I was like, let's try this GB Outdoors thing. Let's build a tribe. Let's connect with other folks. I love the outdoors. getting into the outdoors in probably 2012 probably saved my life. I had a pretty bleak outlook on some stuff. And I had some friends in Southern Georgia that put on a hunt, CAG and, Rangers and MARSOC and SF dudes. We all just got to hang out. And so now we were bonding over things that weren't war. So I was like, there's something good to this. I remember growing up in the mountains of Utah as a kid, and I was like, that's where my passion is. Let me throw this weird looking dart on the wall and see what sticks. And so this is kind of a brainchild from this last year. Still figuring it out. The economy's doing weird things, and obviously outdoors and firearms go hand in hand, but obviously we're seeing restrictions on what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. The censorship is real. So it's kind of slow going. It's a lot of old school network marketing stuff. You just got to know people and just start calling people. The quick, easy, throw out a Facebook ad thing and get things going is a little difficult if you're trying to do something that, is built on a conservative ideal, or that, you like that way of life. It's not, it's like counter culture now, which is absolutely ridiculous to me, but that's kind of all I know. That's all the people I know are like that. We all love the outdoors, love fishing, hunting, just being outside. So I don't know. It's all a grand adventure. We're just figuring it out. So
I can totally relate. I've been, I was born and raised in the mountains. I'm a big outdoors guy. I like to fish more than I like to hunt, but I like to hunt because you only have to hunt half as much as you do to feed your family. So like there's a volume aspect to hunting that I really enjoy. I really enjoy volume fishing too, but the volume of hunting tends to work out better. And then I also like, with Veteran Outdoors, and then our outdoor apparel company Kermode. Like, yeah, this is a tough market time. It's a tough market space, but if that's what you truly love, man, you got to go after it. And that's what makes America great, right? That's the following, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And, if you want to live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, grow your hair and your beard out, put on a ball cap, and hit the wood line and do good things, and it supports you, you absolutely should do that. Because, the old adage, happy wife, happy life. Well, that doesn't just go for like your significant other. If you're happy and you're doing something positive, it reflects on everyone in the sphere of influence around you. Your kids become better citizens. Your wife becomes a better, community person. Your relationships are better because you're happy. You're fulfilled. It's purposeful. The greatest thing, that the military faces as they transition from, being in the military to the civilian world, as you put it, is the lack of noble and purposeful, effort. And without like that noble purpose and without purposeful effort, like you said it yourself, like you went on a quick adventure to make some money. Your heart wasn't in it. It wasn't purposeful. You were probably some trunk monkey at the back of some armored vehicle, making sure that whoever that was in the vehicle didn't get killed. And you probably didn't even like the person. Probably didn't even know their name. Probably couldn't even spell it. And you're like, this is fucking awesome. I'm getting paid. I'm making 6 digits. First 70's tax free or 78's tax free. Life is good. But it's not. Like, it's so empty, it's hollow. And that's why, you got to do that thing. You call it a weird, ugly dart. I call it a rose, man. You're putting that rose in the vase and you're adding a little bit of water. Yep. It's going to continue to bloom. It's going to continue to grow. And you're going to be able to transfer that. You can bless your family with that beautiful flower. You can bless, your daughter at her wedding with that beautiful flower, because you're doing something noble and purposeful.
No, 100% agree. You hit it on the nail, or hit the nail on the head. So,
yeah. I always hit it on the nail too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's.
Hey man, the old noodle's been screwed up once or twice. Sometimes it comes out different than I meant to say it. It's like replying to a text message. You're like, well, in my head, I replied. So sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
I use that excuse a lot.
but I mean, you talked about Toby. You talked about your relationships better and all that kind of stuff. It is because you're happier. I mean, you can be a sourpuss who's just pissed off and hates the world, and walks around with a grumpy face, and so people try to reach out to you, and you just snap and that kind of stuff. That's not going to build it. But if you're out there and you talked about also this fear of influence, right? Just by the way you act, people say this guy acts different, right? This person or woman, doesn't matter. Like, why are you so positive? Right? Why are you? We've talked to so many people, and we know so many folks, and I'm sure you do too, Dusty. That have been banged up 10 ways to Sunday, right? Rusty Bradley's a good friend of ours. Rusty's a longtime SF guy who did all of his time down in the southern sector. Was there also in '06, and some of these guys have been through hell in a back, and it's in their books, or we know their stories. Yet they come out and go, God left me here for a reason. What can I do positive with it, right? And we all know we have friends and comrades that we have lost, and we all question why them, not us. And then at some point, I think many have that transition when they wake up one day and realize, I was left here for a reason. I got to make the best of it, right? And just like if I was the one gone, I'd want someone to make the best of it if I couldn't come back. So I mean, I think it's awesome that you're doing this. What are you doing to how's it going? I mean, what is the premise of GB Outdoors? Is it just exposing folks to it? Is it, because you talked about the bonding, that is huge. Finding this moment to sit down and just communicate with each other and get them to open up, or kind of what's the premise of it?
So in part of my travels, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of different organizations over the years. And there's just something bonding about the outdoors, a campfire late at night, telling stories. So I want to tribe. I want to reinvigorate people into this, like get out of, especially with COVID, right? Everyone's been trapped up for so long. We're not healthy. We've not been getting sunlight. We're not getting fresh air. Like, let's go explore the outdoors. There's this whole other life that has evolved without brick and mortar. So go figure it out. Go find something you like. If you're not into hunting, well, there's backpacking and mountain biking and kayaking and canoeing. Maybe you like your vehicles and you're a wrench monkey. Like, well, cool, man. There's a lot of really cool trails in Idaho that we've done a really good job of maintaining, and the state has opened up for people to go enjoy motorsports recreational. I mean, that's a thing too. Like, if you like to kind of quiet, I call it the deafening silence. Like, there's nothing like being up on a ridgeline and just glassing for deer and elk and just seeing what the world's doing outside of politics, outside of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all the garbage that kind of gets spewed on us day in and day out. Like, it's nice to just disconnect and reconnect with something that's just more purposeful, more wholesome, more healthy. It's an active lifestyle. So
what's that common saying? I mean, it's mostly said about fishing, but it definitely could be said with hunting, right? Worst day fishing is better than my best day working.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
If you're standing in a stream, waders on and throwing that fly rod, or you're sitting up in a stand all day and just watching the sun come up and bless God's country, I mean, it's still, you're still like, it's still awesome place. Stupid squirrels behind you making you think every one of them's a damn deer and everything else, but it's it is something, and it is it's therapeutic, right? How's that been? Have you been able to reach anybody? Have you found new folks that has GB Outdoors been able to progress enough yet to be able to reach out to some folks? And have you seen a difference?
Not yet. This kind of got cooked up late last year, and right now I'm just focusing on the relationships, connections, networks. I go about things a little different, is I kind of throw it out there, and then I kind of let the market kind of fence in where it wants to go. Because if you don't listen to the people that follow you, you don't listen to your customer base, you're going to be chasing your tail. So it's just been connecting with folks, figuring out who's in the space, who's interested, who wants to run with it. We'll probably be getting into knife making and doing that kind of thing, because that's kind of a fundamental thing for the outdoors. Like, you got to have a good knife. I got a good friend down in Nevada. We've talked back and forth, and have discussed with other industry professionals. So we'll probably lead out with a knife line of some sort, and then ultimately the end state is that you know, a lot of people come to me for advice because of my experiences, and I'm sure both of you could share this. Uh, but like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Well, the good news is we've stepped down that pond enough times that we know, well, hey, you know, in the early spring, don't use the green one, use a pink lure. You know, use this instead of that. Like, we've spent the money, we've got the experience and the time. So I want to kind of a bespoke kind of custom deal, like where, look, I've done all the guesswork and I know what you need. Like, you don't have to go spend all the money in market research like I have to go figure this out. I'll just look, I know what you need based on what you tell me, and then we'll build packages, like whether that goes down the rifle line and we can, you know, do that if that still exists here in the next couple of years. um, but outdoors, let's do the outdoors, you know, be the next Sportsman's Guide, Midway USA, whatever, Cabela's, Bass Pro. But let's start, you know, start it out of my garage and see where it goes. So,
Okay.
Well, you know, I love it. You know, and you know, if you're ever looking for some like good high end outdoor apparel, I know a good American veteran owned manufacturer. Uh,
Commodity
and
Outdoor Development Group.
yeah, and you know, if you have any questions about, you know, running programs in the outdoors, we've been doing it for a solid decade. So like, anything we can do to help you. How can people help you? Where can they find you?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, mostly.
Okay. The GB Outdoors.
Yep, GB Outdoors. And then you just find my personal profile, Dusty Jones, on Facebook, and all my stuff's all linked into there.
With the Dusty Jones, right?
Yes.
All right. Because you know, like randomly, there's probably another Dusty Jones out there. We don't want them getting their fame.
Yeah, there's a few, I guess.
I mean, it's stolen valor on their part, you know, to claim your name. I like found a Toby Nunn the other day, and I was like, what the, like, wrong. I was like, I don't know why I got so offended. I'm like, that's such a great name, but who'd have thought of it? There'd be more than one. All right, man. Well, we appreciate you coming by. We appreciate you talking to us, and man, thanks for your service. Like, I know it always sounds cheesy, and you know, we're like fellow vets saying that, but man, I appreciate it, you know, like, because, you know, it was nice having good people on the same team. And, you know, it makes it a lot easier when there's things that are like confusing, like what's going on right now, where we got our own government vetting the military. You would think that would have happened at the station called MEPS, but like, you know, it's just strange times, man.
Yeah,
And,
strange times.
And so, like, you know, I feel like I got to say that now more than ever, because, yeah, I really appreciate that. I really, you know, one, as an immigrant, you know, that was blessed with the opportunity to stay in this country because of the military, and the guys on my left and my right, and the gals in some units that I was in, you know, like, it's awesome. You know, like, this is what makes America better. People like appreciating the land, and there's nothing better than getting outdoors. And I hope when you were in 7th Group and you went through Panama, I hope you went after some peacock bass, man. That's a bucket list.
If you're not in Gatun Lake ripping in peacock bass, you missed out on Panama.
I've fished all around the world. I've fished in Panama, but not inland. And so, like, while I did get my favorite, like, species, my biggest bucket list species of my life, I got off the coast of Panama. I gotta get back, because I gotta get that peacock bass.
There's all kinds of stuff all over South America that's on the bucket list.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta get me some peacock bass.
Yeah, I mean, that's just an experience itself. Like I said, I lived down there myself, and you know, I grew up as a kid. We were out fishing every weekend, fishing. We, you know, camping out on you know, Pena Beach and everywhere like that, and just, you know, watching my dad going out and fishing for, you know, getting fresh lobster out of the ocean, fighting off hammerheads, doing all that kind of stuff, and yeah, so it's a great experience. But all that builds what you have, right? When you talk to people, when you consult with organizations, I mean, all that we don't think about it all the time, but it definitely comes back. And I want to echo what Toby said, and I said at the start was thanking you and I for your service, and mostly because you came in after. I retired as a first sergeant, and as I told many of my soldiers after about 04, 05, was like, I would thank them all the time. Like, you didn't, I transitioned, right? I was in the 80s and the 90s and all the way through. And it's like, there were soldiers obviously that came in before, that came in for the college fund, for the GI Bill, for all these great, here, you get this free by just doing a couple years kind of stuff. Anyone after about 03, 04, 05 for sure, they were raising their hand again, either re-enlisting or enlisting, that they knew what they were getting into. It didn't matter if they were National Guard, active component, reservist. It didn't matter. They knew there was no more, I'm just going to come do 3 years, get me some college money and get out. The chance of fate putting their life on the line was there. And that's, we all know, right? It's less than 1% that has ever done that. So, and it's awesome to see you take that and just continue to try to find a way to give back and not only be therapeutic for yourself, but also for others and trying to help others. So it's a great thing. So, hey, anything else? Before we let you go, any of the departing words, anything you want to let our viewers or listeners know about?
No, I just want to, likewise, guys, I thank you guys. You guys kind of laid the groundwork for the next generation. So it takes all of us to make this whole wheel go around. So it's heartfelt and I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Well, thanks,
awesome.
bud.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dusty. Have a good one. Stay in contact with us. When things get moving, like Toby said, definitely reach out. He's got a ton of experience in the space that you're in. And but if things get happening, you get another big announcement or something big happen, definitely let us know. Get a hold of us. We'd love to have you back on and talk about that and help promote you and promote what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, man. Have a good one. All right, everybody. There we go. Mr. Dusty Jones. Just a cool name too. Just a cool flipping name.
It's non-pon.
Yeah, you say that again.
Yeah, it is a cool name. Like it's a good American name. It just invokes like freedom. Like his like appearance backs up the name. Like it's a cool persona. SF dude. Like got the hockey hair going, got a little beard rocking. Live in the outdoors, and his name's Dusty Jones. I mean, the only thing more American would be Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah,
like
trader in for a hawk and gun.
Yep,
that's it.
I love it, man. I love guys like that.
Those SF guys, man, they got great. That must be a requirement now for Rusty Bradley, Tim Kennedy, Mike Simpson. You don't see many Francis's in the SF. I don't think.
Travis Wilson.
Yes. Travis Wilson. You
gotta have a good name.
That's it.
Like,
Opening.
I guess that's why they didn't let me in. They were like, oh man, like
Toby Nunn. It doesn't roll.
That dude sounds like Shakespearean. Like, nope, pass.
Yep.
They're looking at the pack. Nope. Pass.
He sounds like a striker guy. Send him over there.
Yeah. They're like, this dude, he's not gonna make it.
That's it.
Man.
Go ahead.
No, like the funny thing is like people in the outdoor industry right now are perplexed because this is the time. If ever there was a medically necessitated public health necessitated time to get more people outdoors, it's right now in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah. And
get that 6 feet.
Every piece of science, every study has shown the most dangerous place on earth is indoors with a lot of people, right? Get outside.
Before the pandemic. Even before the pandemic.
Even before the pandemic.
Right.
But now it's like you got all this effort in science, like saying, get away from fluorescent lights, get underneath the sun, take in that vitamin D. Be in open air, get away from people, exercise, like public health and medically necessitated, and that industry is struggling.
Yeah.
Because, of course, in, like the institution's infinite wisdom, and this isn't an administration dig. This is just the dig of institution. Once an organization gets to a certain size, it just loses its mind. It's just like a really high-speed E8 that's a badass that goes to like El Paso and goes to Sar Major Academy.
Ooh, lobotomy.
There's a
lobotomy 101.
There's a fountain in the DFAC there that just puts stupid juice into a cup. And then you like learn all these really cool administrative things, and then you fucking shit it out, and you end up back at the unit yelling at people over grass,
Painting
and drip
rocks and
pans.
cutting grass. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Drip pans. Yep.
like anytime an institution or an organization gets to a certain size and people rise up inside said institution, stupidity follows.
They lose their roots, right? That's it. And that's we've seen that our best. It's why, you know, a lot of officers in the military, typically, I'd say in my opinion, a lot of officers have typically been better ones when they've been Mustangs, when they were enlisted, when they knew what it was like to come up. They didn't just go through an OCS or RTC or service academy. They were out there scrubbing those without having a drip pan. They were changing, breaking track, changing out things, cutting that grass, and they came up. So when they when they got in charge, they can look and say, "I've been there and done it." Right? We all know leaders that have walked the walk we've walked in are usually better leaders because they know what they're asking of you, right? And we know the best leaders are the ones that say and do, not just say, but also demonstrate that they will not ask anything of their people that they would not be willing or have not done themselves, right?
No, like we have in our Facebook chat room, we have a striker soldier that was in Charlie 123. His name's Pat Oglesby.
He's chatty. He's chatty in the group tonight.
He's I don't know, some of what he's like typing is suspect. He might have been drinking, but he was the RTO to one of the greatest Mustangs I've ever met. A guy by the name of Jason Ford. Young infantry guy, went into Ranger Regiment, spent some time in Ranger Regiment, got out, went to school, ROTC, came back as an officer, and like he brought like just a wealth of knowledge and experience, and commanded respect like no other. He was like like the doppelganger to Shrek. Which also commands like don't care. But anyway,
he was that wingman at the club. I'm sure.
He gave a safety briefing one time that changed my life, and if I was legally allowed to recreate it on this platform without us like permanently being banned,
or being investigated by certain 3-letter agencies,
there would definitely be some investigation. But it was by far the best safety brief I've ever received. But anyway,
yeah,
I feel like we need a safety brief for like what's going on right now, because like
we got to open up. I want to say Pat did comment that it was a good show. We hadn't talked politics or whatever, so I think it was Pat that said that. So I'm gonna it was. I'm gonna apologize to you now because we're probably gonna get there.
Beer.
Yeah, hold my beer. I'm glad we got through that part and you enjoyed that part, Pat. But we may talk a little bit about that. We got a little bald man and not so much bald man ranting, I'm sure, to do tonight. So Toby, I'm gonna let you go first. What topic, one or two topics, do you want to hit on before I get on mine?
All right. So I have two things. The first one I'm going to talk about, I kind of touched on earlier. And this is not a slight. This is not a position because I am one side or the other. This is purely about the use of our military. I said it last.
I should have known we were going to talk about the same stuff.
Yeah, no. That's because we're brothers from another motherland.
That's it.
No, the use of our military and the use of the National Guard. We talked about this last week. If you want to go back and listen to episode 234, 24, whatever it is, it sounds like an infantry unit at a probably like Campbell, but we need to use our troops appropriately, and we need to use them with respect. And two things, like worst choice for security ever, because the military only know how to do the military thing. So if you don't want TCPs, triple wire, and stupid jersey barriers to like ugly up your event, don't bring the people that's the only thing they know.
Yeah.
And then if you really want them to be that way, like, all of them without a magazine in, because none of them had ammo. That was 25,000 weapons that could have ended up in a cartel real fast, because like Well, they already lost. They lost weapons. Like, you're not seeing this in the news. But
yeah, I'm saying I'm sure some did.
They lost Humvees. Humvees got like jacked because, like, well, Joe's gonna Joe.
Joe's gonna Joe. May not put that lock around that steering wheel. And
like, I know, like, I think one Humvee made it to the news. Like, for sure, like, one Humvee made it to, like, they're like, someone stole a Humvee. It's like, is it really stealing when it's like keys aren't involved? And it's just like, hit the switch.
Someone asked me, said, how could they do that and get not no one see it? I'm like, that thing's in a chop shop. That thing's being lowered and customed out and make it look like a regular H1. That's a nice thing. You make it look like an H1. It just has really thick windows and gets bad gas mileage.
So that's so I had 2 parts to our military. I think we need to use it appropriately. And again, I'm not coming from a partisan place here. So anyone that wants to be like, oh, you're just talking partisan. I'm not. I'm just talking respect for the military. It doesn't matter who the commander-in-chief is. You don't use them inappropriately, and you don't vet them. You don't secondarily vet them because that's already happened. That's how they got in. You know, like, they searched your body for tattoos. They already went through a vetting system. And then the whole FBI, we're going to redo the vet, you know, just to see who, like, might. That's hogwash. That's absolutely, like, one of the greatest levels of disrespect I've ever seen our military, like, hit. Like, that was a shank. That was a straight-up prison, bathroom, shower scene shanking. That was horrible.
It was narrative fodder. It was just to support a narrative. That's all it was.
It was just, that's horrible. And then the other thing is, there's a lot of talk about the potential incoming Secretary of Defense, former Army General Austin. I really think it's important that we listen to our leadership about this waiver. And so, just so our listening audience understand, so when a military officer, general officer typically, leaves the military, retires, there's a cooling off period before that person can hold certain levels of government office. And to circumvent that, like anything in the military, there's a waiver. The waiver was exercised in the last administration for General Mattis, and you know, like a lot of people, you know, were all about Mattis being the Secretary of Defense. I was hesitant. I said that here on the show, and one of the reasons I was hesitant about saying it on the show is because I felt like, and I can't remember what episode number that was, probably in the early 100s, was because he's coming right out of the force. He was just the commandant of the Marine Corps.
Right.
And what's going to happen? Everything is, and everyone thought I felt this way because, like, I'm Army and he's a Marine. Well, that's part of it. That's why there's this cooling off period. That way, like, there isn't these embedded relationships that this guy can go and use over and over. And, you know, like, if you've listened to the show, you know that while we respect a lot of things that General Mattis, Secretary Mattis, did in his career, he's got some holes in his career, and we've talked about him at length with his victims on this show.
Yep.
And, you know, so, like, I feel the same way about General Austin. I don't think they should grant a waiver.
Sadly, I think it got done right before the show started. By both houses, yeah. I think they've granted both of them, yeah.
Yeah, which, you know, is unfortunate because, like, you know, when you're this close from the disconnect of your military career to going back in, you have some strong relationships that, you know, are not to the betterment of the force. You're going to fall on personal bias. You're not going to be as objective. And let's be honest, like, General Mattis was a very wise leader. He was well read. General Austin's not. General Austin's a hack. You know, like,
yeah, his career's a little bit more tarnished.
Yeah, you know, like, and no offense, like, yeah, he served a lot better than I served in terms of rank and in terms of time with decades, but, like, it was his policy and his leadership that let ISIS flourish.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, like, you know.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I mean, it's
like, you got a big L on your record. I don't think you deserve like to have the entire command if you had a small command and you got the biggest L of our generation.
Yeah.
So, like,
no, I mean, it's you know, it's good for the SecDef to have military experience, and a lot of those leaders, I think, should have military background experience, just like we talked about. You know where you came from. You can understand and appreciate that, right? I'd much rather them have that than come from the complete civilian sector to lead our entire military. But they, you know, you and I both know, Toby, when we got out of active, heck, even when I retired out of the National Guard, right? You're still so connected. Your vernacular, everything is still that. You're thinking that way. You're saying, oh, it's 2200. Granted, I still do that because I like military time. It's easier to understand. But, you know, you're still thinking and talking that way all the time. And the people you just either served with or led are now you're leading again. They haven't even moved. Like that, you saw them as a whatever rank, and a couple years later, they're still the same rank, right? So you don't even feel like it just feels like naturally you fall back into it. But now you're wielding a much bigger sword, right? You're the SecDef, and you know, you're the War Department dude, essentially.
Yeah. So like I feel the same way about political appointments within the National Guard. So for our listening audience that are unfamiliar, that you got the Reserve and the National Guard. The Reserve is a federal component, and the National Guard is a state component with federal support. The commander of a state National Guard is called the adjutant, the state adjutant. That is a politically appointed position. It is a 2-star billet, right? But it is a politically appointed position. So you could have been, and this has happened, state of Florida.
Many states.
An E4.
Yep.
An enlisted
specialist
service member, junior member that only met the requirement of his service and got automatically promoted based on time, not on potential and not on performance. All that meant is like he didn't, you know, like step on his crank too publicly.
Right.
And then you take someone with that military experience and due to political appointment, you take them from like not being responsible for a single soldier or maybe one or two soldiers, and then put them in charge of thousands.
Tens of thousands of Army and Air Army and Air soldiers,
depending on the state.
Right.
You know, like depending on the state, yeah, tens of thousands. Like,
and it can't. And people don't realize that they may not be federally recognized. Right. They may not be federally recognized, but in that state, they're the 2-star, and they wield a big sword in that state. They're essentially the SecDef of the state, right? Or the Joint Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, or however you want to refer to it. But yes, that is. You wouldn't do that. And this is a big one too. I mean, I agree. So,
and so like yeah, Rob has confirmed the House 326 to 78 and the Senate 69 to 27.
Right. I mean, the one good thing is he has served.
I bet if you looked at the 27 dissenting, I bet a vast majority of them are military. I bet you'll see in that number of those dissenting 27. You'll see guys like Tom Cotton. You'll see some of these veterans that are like, like we learned the lesson.
You know who I think some of the 78 are, and Rob will correct us. I bet some of those are the squad, because I know quite a few Dems, and I think all the squad was against giving him that waiver and allowing that to happen. I know there were a number of Democrats that were against it, because when he first announced Austin, there were a number that came out and said, "Don't do that. We don't support that. You're not going to, get our support." So it'd be interesting to see. So,
yeah. So that's what I had on the military side.
Yeah.
I have another subject I want to dive into, but I will let you while we're on the military.
You will yield your time to the fine gentleman from New York.
The distinguished gentleman.
I don't want to say that.
From Buffalo.
There we go.
From Buffalo.
Not from Buffalo. I'm just living here now. I want to make sure we're very clear on that. So 2 things. I want to hit my 2 things. One is close to home. And I haven't gotten clearance to say names yet, so I'm not going to say them because I don't know if it's open source. But I do want to acknowledge and remind our listeners and viewers that whether we have soldiers, and I say soldiers, you all know that I mean all branches. I'm not going to break it all down. You guys know what I mean. It's like saying guys. I mean everybody. we have soldiers that's serving all over this world that are always in harm's way, and whether it's in a combat zone or not, and things can happen. And we have them serving right here in the States. Well, last night, the New York National Guard lost 3 brave souls, probably just an hour from where I am right now, that were doing a typical training flight out of a medevac unit, and a number of pilots went down, a medevac bird went down, and three soldiers were lost that were, National Guardsmen. They were fathers and sons and brothers, and they were, probably employees and had a regular job. I don't know if they were full-time National Guard or not. More than likely they had co-workers and all that kind of stuff, and they had some training they had to do, to keep up on that, doing a night training flight, but it's a dangerous thing. And, we lost 3 National Guardsmen. One, I don't agree with Governor Cuomo a lot, but, he immediately went and demanded, or, ordered that all state flags be put at half staff for him. And I thank him for that. And I'm glad he did, because that has not happened a lot in the past. So, I just want to remind people that whether you see it, hear it, or know it, there are people out there doing dangerous things, and training for their jobs and doing their real things, not doing stuff for other people. So I kind of take that into the next topic, which goes along with Toby's, but I'm going to hit a little different angle, and that is this 25,000 soldiers that were sent down to DC. Now, I had been saying for the last week or so in a number of circles that they were, I felt they were not needed. They were, Toby, I've had the luxury of being at 2 inaugurations and 2 phenomenal historic events. And, there's no shortage of military uniforms at inauguration. Normally there's no shortage of all branches being represented, and all that. And, when you limit every congressperson to bring 1 person versus giving them hundreds of tickets, when you say the whole thing's going to be less than 200,000 people and all that kind of stuff, to bring 25,000, their National Guard, and probably some active duty forces to some degree down there to secure the area, but you don't give them the tools, i.e. weapons, ammo, all that stuff, to secure it. And you line the whole place with concertina wire and fencing and all that kind of stuff. It really leads me to think that that the whole reason why you want them there is to support a narrative. And I don't mean to get conspiracy theorists here, but maybe a narrative of somewhere down the road that hey, look what we had to do. Look how bad those gun-toting, Bible-hugging Christian, Trump supporters are, that we had to put 25,000 soldiers there. That's how bad it is. We got to maybe take guns. We got to do this. I don't know. I'm not saying that's a motivation, but it seems to back that up. It is my view of that, or opinion of that, seems to have been supported even more so when I found out yesterday, Toby, that Nancy Pelosi had requested crew-serve machine guns be deployed in D.C. as part of this event. She wanted crew-serve machine guns. I guess that means they were going to get MAMO put on the corners. Luckily, DOD denied it. But it's like, you really think you need a Joe up there on a 240 or a 50 cal on the street on Constitution Avenue?
I was just trying to cycle the ghost round.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Toby, but I've come outside. I've left the wire a few times and watched a Mark 19 or a 50 cal rocket one off, right? Like, oops, don't know where that went, right?
I've had to do a patrol to a neighborhood to do a cash exchange for some damage because of a ghost round.
Yeah.
The good news is Q-36 picked it up and told us where to go.
that was nice of it. Look, it was big enough. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, so, I mean, when I heard that, it was like, man, really? You needed that? Nancy Pelosi is that much of an expert on the security that she needs to request crew-serve weapons? That really made me think, yes, this was all done for a reason. And then I watched the ceremony and I realized, wow, those uniforms, the multicam with those helmets and no weapons, and those pro masks, they make a great backdrop when you're panning the crowd and you see what appears to the layman as this great military support. Look at that wall of combat uniforms there to witness the inauguration. Yeah, I know for some of our listeners and viewers may think, dude, we're not that dumb. You're not. But tell you what, there's sheep in this country who think what they turn on at 6 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night and thinks that what they're being told is the absolute truth, and they go right along with it. They will, right? They'll see that. And they look at our proud military supporting President Biden. Look how much they loved him. They were sitting there. They were nothing but camera fodder. Thank goodness not cannon fodder. But you remember, we were told, there was intel that there were going to be 50 attacks on all 50 national, every 50, which I immediately said,
Yeah,
and my wife said,
this.
who's going to Juneau to attack Alaska, right? No, you know, and so there was supposed to be these attacks in every state capital. There was none. There were supposed to be attacks in D.C. There were none. You know where there were attacks? In Portland and Washington, Seattle, by Antifa, who are anti-Biden. So this whole narrative that we've been fed for a week, that be ready, and everyone's going, man, we're about to go into a shitstorm. What's Wednesday going to be like? There was nothing. It was a big old goose egg, and it was nothing else. That is what's pissing me off. I told you a month ago or 2 months ago how I didn't like Cuomo putting soldiers at the airports because it gave this Gestapo feel as they tried to make people fill out forms when they flew in. This takes it to 1,000 times worse, right? Lining these soldiers everywhere. Anyways, I'll pause.
No, so I think you touch on a couple of things that warrant notation. First and foremost, to your initial point, this shouldn't be lost on people. You have the Speaker of the House contacting the military to give military guidance, circumventing the chain of command and circumventing, like any kind of military protocol. Like, the United States military, be it National Guard or active duty or reserve component, is not serving at the pleasure of the Speaker of the House or the Vice President, right? Like that's not how it works. You know, this is the second time within a week that she reached out to the military to give her input and her guidance.
Overstepped her authority by a lot.
Not like this isn't just like, she's not just a habitual line stepper, but like this is like unprecedented conversation. Like unprecedented conversation. I think we talked about it last week where, she like asked the chairman of the Joint Chiefs like to limit Trump or not to listen to Trump about any kind of troop movement or any kind of troop activity. Like that is by definition a military coup. And, thank goodness that, General Milley, is not that guy. And is a consummate professional and like, was like, ma'am, that's not how it works. Let me like, just remind you, blah, blah, but so that's one. Two, like there were the replacement, of civilians for the military, for this backdrop. And I agree with you. This was definitely a flex. This was definitely a statement. This is definitely a narrative. Unfortunately, it wasn't supported by the actual activity. The whole narrative of this insurrection and all this stuff coming is to promote the impeachment of the president. They're not hiding it. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is like Nancy Pelosi was on C-SPAN today at her press conference saying the reason he's on trial for impeachment is because of the insurrection. And they're going to hang this riot, this mob, these jack wagons that like
less than 200 people of 74 million,
that did this thing on Trump as an impeachable offense. And I've said on the air, and I've said that he used words and he gave a message that he had to have known the outcome. Now, did he know that they would do all that stuff? No. Did he say to do all that stuff? No. Do I suspect that he understood what he was saying? Yes. Is that provable? No. Now we're going to deal with the court aspect of it. And, he's not a seated president anymore. So you're going to put a guy on trial and he's going to be able to defend himself. He's going to be able to bring lawyers. He's going to be able to do all the things that he couldn't do last time because they're going to try and besmirch him and his entire administration over one little thing. Well, I guess it's not that little, but over one thing. That didn't happen.
Right.
Like the attacks didn't happen. The intelligence was bad. And so now we're going to find out, because it's
or
going
it
to go
was
to a
made
court.
up. Or,
It's going to go to court. It's like, where'd you get that intelligence? And then we're going to find out, like, well, who's vetting the FBI?
right.
Because last time the FBI set up General Flynn, the FBI, like, were openly like
Launched an entire investigation over one dude that said he had a hearsay through a bar. I mean, it was sitting at a
so I while frustrated and they got used, like, I think it's going to play itself out the way it should be. However, it takes me back to my initial point. That's why you don't use the military in this capacity.
Right.
And you can't set this precedent. When I looked at some of the things that people were sending me, and they were like, Toby, do you think this is true? Do you think this is accurate? Is there going to be martial law? It's like,
you too. My phone is blowing up for 2 weeks. Everyone like, is this true? Is he gonna do this? Is he gonna?
It's like, come on.
I know.
Like, come on. Like, I had to tell someone today, I'm like, if you're sending me this, I think you and I need to evaluate our friendship, because, like, I thought you were a lot smarter than this, a lot more knowledgeable than this. You can't fall victim to, like, some of the stupidity. But, like, again, like, that's, the misinformation campaign, or like all this stuff, pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. But it all boils down to, like, don't misuse the military.
You know where some of that came from? The problem is, Toby, the last 20 years, right? We've been having our military, whose mission was to find, fix, and kill the enemy, conduct war, which is a nasty, dirty, brutal, unfriendly, non-PC thing, to build nation, right? There's one part of the military really is for building nations. CBs and PSYOPs, that's about it, right? So the PSYOPs is civil affairs, and the CBs who build stuff, and maybe some engineers, but normally not, because Army and Marine engineers are for blowing up stuff and making bridges. But that's about it. The rest of the military, but we've been asking our military that 20 years, and we know, you and I both have been there on the front lines, that it was a hell of a transition to go from kill that person to help them build a well and get them some school books, right? And help stand up government services. Like, what FM do I look up government services? Oh, you'll figure it out, right? As we were just talking about with Dusty, right? To go out there and, stand up and go into a new environment for the first time and try to get everything going and set up. Special Forces has been trained for that for years prior to 9/11, just to clarify. But since then, not really even a lot themselves. So, but we've desensitized ourselves to think that somehow the military is this nice, friendly Trust me, go to a basic, I don't know about it anymore, but go to the basic trainings that Toby and I went to and listen to the cadences, or go to your combat units and listen to the cadences and what we sang while we ran PT and did things. And you would realize there's not too much touchy-feely shit going on out there, right? We talked about bodies, burning bodies. We talked about mowing people down, because that's what we trained. We trained the human psyche, mostly young 19 to 21, 22-year-olds, to do something that's against our DNA, and that is take another human being's life. You don't do that by just saying, "Hey, go do that." You have to desensitize the brain and convince it that this is okay and this is a normal way of conducting things, right? That's not done by hugging people and putting flowers in place. But I think that's what led to that, was let's use the military, let's use the National Guard, right? It's another, in my opinion, one step closer to pitching brother against brother.
Well, and, like, the other aspect of it is, when you look at the media talking about the Capitol riot, they focused in on people, that were dressed in some form of military garb.
And boy, when they found out who they were, they highlighted, didn't it? That guy was a retired Air Force guy. That guy was this.
And then
she was an Air Force vet.
Like, you put a guy, and I gotta tell you, and another reason, no disrespect, National Guard, y'all have some uniform issues, right? Like everybody's got these weird patches on, and I don't mean they're unit patches, like. You got guys with relaxed grooming standards. You got guys with, like,
relaxed weight standards. Look at the ones that Pelosi was talking to.
We brought that up last week. you know, you got guys that have like these morale patches on their arms and stuff, like super unpro. But anyway, I don't want to harp on the military.
No.
I got
But if
one
you're
more
going to
thing I wanna
send,
touch
if
on.
you're going to send your National Guard, if you're going to send soldiers, and these states weren't just sending lock, they picked 1,000, they picked 2,000. That's how they win it. I would think, just like if you were going to send someone in front of a board, if you're going to send someone to a school, you're going to send 1,000 soldiers. This is so any of our adjutant generals, tags out there listening, or state sergeant majors, please take note from this retired first sergeant. If you're going to send 1,000 soldiers to D.C. to be at the biggest, most watched event in the world, not the nation, the world, in which every camera from every news outlet around the world is going to be there, taking pictures and videoing and interviewing and stuff like that, please, for God's sake, make sure, one, they look like you would expect a soldier to look, they dress like a soldier expects to look, and they conduct themselves that way, which means you don't send someone down there who looks like an AR 600-9 reject to stand in front of the Speaker of the House and get talked to, and 1,000 cameras take 10,000 pictures. Because guess what? Al Jazeera shows it. Japan National News shows it. Amsterdam World shows it. All this kind of stuff. And that's the image. Because that image is worth 1,000 words. And you look at that and go, whoa, that's the big brave warrior? Like
the picture I shared of, like, as Eric calls them, Meal Team 6, I got from the United Kingdom's Daily Mail. I didn't get it from an American news source.
Right.
You know, like,
I mean, you're going to send your best and brightest. You're sending soldiers to Best Warrior. You're sending them to Ranger School. You're sending them up for Soldier of the Year. They are looking strapped. They are looking sharp. You're not putting smack asses out there. How hard was that to pick them?
You want to serve on the DMZ in Korea? You got to be over 6 foot. You want to be in the old guard and work in Arlington? You got to be over 6 foot.
And
you want to be a tomb walker? You got to be this. You know, like, no, they're again. I think it was a horrible move. I think it was unprofessional, and I think it was a PR stunt. I think it was a political hack job, and you know, like it just diminished the value of our force, and I'm embarrassed by it.
The reason you and I have this show is because we were retired and we now can share our opinion. We can be political in that because we know that when we served, and what do people say? They're like, well, how could you follow President Bush? You know what? I follow the commander in chief. I'm given lawful orders. I do. I don't have an opinion, right? And if people tried to interview you, in fact, you did the documentary, did all this stuff, you know, it doesn't matter what I think of why I'm here. I'm here to execute a mission. My opinion doesn't matter. We are apolitical, right?
In fact, I made a comment in that documentary that I was part of, about not my leadership, but about a civilian organization benefiting from the situation. I was reprimanded because, like, you don't have any form of opinion,
right?
And you know, like, and I earned that reprimand,
right?
Like I spoke out of turn.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why you're not allowed to be in the military in uniform at a political event, right? You're not. You can't be at a campaign trail. You can't do that because you're apolitical. You're serving at the orders of the president or the governor or your commanders and all that kind of stuff. And it was just it was sad to see. And you know, there are a lot of other things about this week, but it doesn't surprise me. You and I kind of focused on the two that are, you know, focused pretty much on the same thing because it's near and dear to our heart.
Well, I have one more.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, and that's because, like, if you listen to the show for more than 30 minutes probably, I've mentioned that I am not from the United States of America. I am from the nation to the north, Canada. I'm a proud immigrant, and I am working diligently, and I serve this country honorably so that I could remain here, and, you know, not just because, you know, I was like working on some anchor babies. Like, I love this country, the Bill of Rights, and that's why I'm here. However, I still got some love for Canada. I still got love for Canada because I was born into that country. I'm proud of the heritage that my father brought me into the world to. My brother still lives there. My cousin works in the oil and gas industry in northern Alberta. I know that British Columbia, Alberta are the two most profitable provinces in the entire country of Canada, and they support the majority of the initiatives by the Canadian government because they're the ones that got the money to pay for it. in one fell swoop
Yesterday.
with an executive order, the President of the United States stopped, revoked, and rescinded the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, before everyone, and their bleeding heart start like beating the environmental drum, let's just put some information and some facts out there. This was a program that took 20 years of environmental study to pass, to make sure that it was the most environmentally safe and friendly operation. It's the best pipeline the world has ever seen. All right. So we've had some oil spills in the past, and we've had some concerns about, some pipelines in the north. But this one took all those lessons and reduced every obstacle that they could. It is also not owned by the United States of America. It is a joint venture brokered through treaty by Canada, the government of Canada, not businesses, by the government of Canada and the government of the United States, with options to private business. And without regard and without consultation to the Canadian government and the people of Canada, out of political spitefulness, there's no other term for it. And if you want to go on my Facebook, you can see the press release, the press speak, the speech given by the Premier of Alberta, the leader of that land, saying what a hurtful, spiteful, vulgar attack on the people of Canada it is. Thousands of jobs immediately lost.
Tens of thousands of jobs, including a lot of American union jobs.
So in Canada alone, there's going to be the loss already out of work, over 2,000 Canadian workers already on their way home, pink slip in hand, no more job. Most of those union jobs that were supposed to be protected. And I'm bringing up the unions for a reason. I'm not much of a union guy, but I'm bringing up the union for a reason. A total loss within Canada projected to be about 62,000 jobs. Right? So when you think of 62,000 jobs, now you got to think of the peripheral of that, all the support that goes in. So in terms of hit to a Canadian economy, 500,000 people now unemployed, right? So this is just basic economic, right? Canada has a population in the low 30. We had this whole discussion last week, right? How many million?
36 million, as per Doug, the backup producer.
Right. Dude, that's a big hit. That's a real big hit.
But
now let's talk about the U.S.
Yeah,
now
let's
talk about the U.S.
Yep.
So now, in that same pen stroke, that whichever campaign supporter paid him the most money for, we're looking at the same amount of American jobs. Now I know the ratio Canadian job versus American job isn't as high because of the population base and stuff. But now let's talk about unions.
Which are big supporters of the Democratic Party.
Okay, so you just pissed off one of the most liberal parts of Canada, all right? Like one of the most environmentally safe and liberal parts of Canada. You just pissed off the Rocky Mountains, the most sacred part of Canada, right? Lake Louise, Banff, yeah. Everyone wants to go there. That's who you just pissed off. Now, in America, you pissed off all these union workers. They're the ones that voted for you. Like you said that you were going to look out for the middle-class American man and woman. And what did you do? In the stroke of a pen, with disregard, you didn't even consult anybody. Like I've never seen a Canadian in my entire life. I've never seen a Canadian give the press briefing that I shared on my Facebook today. I've never seen a Canadian so like strongly condemn the United States of America. Call them like,
especially a Democrat-led United States. Just to be clear, especially a Democrat-led United States.
Man, like we how are we going to repair that relationship?
Yeah.
Like, and everyone's like, well, it's Canada. Who gives a shit?
So, and let's just real quick, Toby.
You're gonna give a shit at the pumps here, real quick.
That's where I want to go. Here's where. So some people may say, well, I'm not one of those couple tens of thousands of union jobs. I don't live in the Midwest. I live here. I live on the coast, whatever. Yeah, that may be so. So besides those jobs being done, you're also heavily impacting a number of tribal nations. Right? Maybe you don't care about them either, but the tribal nations were generating a lot of revenue to support their people on the reservations, right? The native people, you know, the ones that a lot of people on the left love to care about, and they had to have a Washington football team change their name to nothing because they so care about the native people. Those people, a lot of nations are also, you know, heavily financially impacted, but you, the American driver, the person that has to put gas in whatever you drive or do whatever with, our ability to get that, you know, be that much more energy independent, because I guarantee you fracking is next, is and we've already heard President Biden talk about his hate of coal, even though he loved to tout his ties to Scranton, PA, where he was just born like a baby and then moved out of there. Those oil jobs, those coal jobs, he's on record of saying it. That's next. But just with the XL pipeline, we're going to see gas prices go up. In fact, I don't know if you noticed, Toby, last I heard, in the last week and a half, they've went up 34 cents in the last week and a half, right? So it's going to touch you. So maybe you're not a union person. Maybe you don't live on an Indian reservation. But depending on who you voted for, you're either to blame for this and we're all going to suffer, or you're not, and the people that voted the other side are going to be suffering, because this was well known. So it's interesting, though. He put himself in a weird pickle. The native the native organizations and the unions, both big, usually heavy Democrat supporters, he picked the Green movement over them, and a Green movement that's flawed in its intelligence and in its the narrative it's putting out.
No, like sorry, I was seeing Rob had put up who the dissenting votes for, and you're right, it was a bunch of squad people. But no, the one thing I want to, I know you just said if you voted for this guy, you're to blame. I'm not going to say that because, he did this himself.
He did, but he made it well known. He ever knew where he was going to go with it.
He didn't hide from this, but he did this. This is an executive order. And, for all the things that people, I'm not even bringing up the jobs that got lost with the wall. All right. And the reason I'm not bringing them up is because, the political fervor that's going to go with wall or no wall. And that job had an end date. The pipeline is an ongoing concern between two countries. And, this is so thoughtless.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time articulating what I'm trying to say, because it's so frustrating to me to think that I'm going to damage tens of thousands of people's lives. However many kids that were being fed by those jobs are going to go hungry. However many are because I'm just pissed about something,
right.
I'm going to put us, we're going back in the Paris Accord. Well, the only reason we're going on the Paris Accord is because you don't know what the Paris Accord is, and you're just pissed because Trump took us out of it.
Right.
It's just mind-blowing that we would just needlessly, make families go hungry just for spitefulness. But that's all I got to say on that, because, like,
think back to the leaders you had in the military, Toby. There were two types of leaders. There was and a leader could be platoon, command, whatever. There were the ones that came in and said, I'm not changing anything. I'm going to see what's going on. I'm going to evaluate the situation, and I'm going to make a decision later. I'm not going to rush because either some things may be working good. And there were those that came in that said, I'm changing it my way day one, right? Because I think my way's better. I'm not even thinking about someone else could have a better idea because the guy or gal I replaced or whatever. That's what we're seeing here, right? Rather than see, because he may be worldly, he may have spent 47 years in the government plus, but until you get in the seat, you don't get all the briefings. You don't get all the intel. You get everything once you get in there. And just because you made a promise on the campaign trail to pander to a certain demographic, doesn't mean that you have to, because obviously candidates don't keep every promise anyways. Doesn't mean you have to do that. You could come in and say, I'm going to look at it first. I'm going to figure it out. Right. President Obama said he's going to close down Gitmo. He said that when he came in. Guess what? Gitmo's still open because he got in there and realized that it had a purpose. So he said something to win votes, but then he got in and realized it's had a purpose and need, and just shutting it down wasn't that easy and wasn't that straightforward. So anyways, yeah. So that's kind of leader's going to be.
No, it's going to be interesting because upsetting Canada on your first day, your closest physical and trade ally, if someone thinks that there aren't going to be repercussions, no, Canada's not going to invade, with their 4 submarines. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But
they have 4 submarines?
I think it's actually 6. But yeah, no, they're big fleet they got there. But there's going to be repercussions. And the repercussions, what a lot of people probably don't think about, it's like the majority of the soft lumber of the world comes from.
I was going to say lumber. That's what I was going to say.
Yep. And right now there's a lumber shortage in the United States from all the building construction. And hey, you're not letting our oil in. The only reason we're selling lumber in America is because of a deal that we said we wouldn't sell it to Russia or China.
Right.
If you break the trade agreements. Well, guess what? Like, you're not getting your lumber, and China's going to get built up faster. Russia's going to get built up faster.
Yeah.
All that grain that's grown across the prairies of Canada that we like to subsidize our growth with, because we're all about growing corn versus growing wheat. Hey, that's going to start finding its way overseas.
Yeah.
And there's going to be consequences, and it's going to be harder. Bread's going to go up in price. These are all these little things. Like, you don't think pissing off Canada is a big deal? It kind of is.
Yeah, we're going to be going back to Canada saying sorry. We're going to be going back.
Yeah. And guess what Canada's part of? Canada's part of the Commonwealth. And you come at Canada in such a way, like, you think mom isn't going to be mad because you spanked their kid on the street. Yeah. Don't rustle Mama Bear. That's going to have trade implications. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that, and I'm out.
Yep. So we got to get going. So with that said, I think we still have video. I hope my software's acting weird, but we hope everyone's doing well. We thank you for joining us tonight. It's been going for an hour and a half. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Next week, Toby will be back. I will not be here next week, but Toby will be here. So be sure you tune back in next Thursday, 8:00 Eastern, here on Stu and the Nunn. I want to thank.
I will have a guest host, reoccurring, trying to get up to the numbers of Mike Simpson, but it's not Mike Simpson.
All right.
But it's a Green Beret.
Oh, you can't go wrong then. So be sure and tune in next Thursday here on Stu and the Nunn. Toby run it. He'll have the tech down pat. Be no problems with that. I have full confidence in him. And want to wish you all a good week. If you haven't been saying prayers for this country, which you should be saying all the time, please keep saying them. Please keep all of our deployed and stateside men and women, first responders, military, law enforcement in your prayers, so they can go home every night as they put their lives on the line and do everything to keep this country safe. Wish you all a well. Try to love your fellow American, even if they don't disagree with them. Remember, it's only politics. It'll change in 2 years, right? There's no reason in relationships over that. So with that, we'd like to say good night. And Toby, I bid you a farewell along with everyone else.
Au revoir.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.